Starbane's Avenue.
Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
I want to tell you about Ed Leedskalnin, the man who built Coral Castle.
Hell yes! I was just fucking thinking about this the other day.
This guy, you can still go there, guys. If you ever go to Florida, go to Homestead. If you're going to the Keys, stop in Homestead on your way down from Miami and go. It's like this weird part of like Florida, we're like right before the Florida Keys, and after Miami, there's suddenly like, a bunch of country, like farm type land. And this was the second location of Coral Castle, which is a straight up wonder of the world.
Right.
When you go there, it's kind of played like it's like a kitschy tourist trap.
Right.
But it's like, it's been called the eighth wonder of the world. It's completely unexplained how this guy built this alone.
Right. So give them some background.
Coral Castle is it's like a basically a mainly outdoor structure. It's not like a actual castle, right? There's one part of it that is completely enclosed that Ed used to live in. That's like in a corner.
Right.
It's a corner room above a tool shed. And the whole rest of it is open air, huge slabs of coral rock, oolite,
limestone?
Limestone.
That's right.
And that is right. From, like, it's in the bedrock of a lot of Florida, South Florida there. And it comes from, coral over time, just kind of like compacting.
Yeah, and fossilizing, basically.
Yeah. Right? And it's completely porous, like coral is. And, coral is like, one of these amazing things, too, where it's like a living thing.
They say that the biggest living thing in the world is the Great Barrier Coral Reef.
Right.
And it's dying because we put sunscreen in it.
So what's amazing about this is that this guy builds these walls, this walled enclosure with this corner tower, like I'm saying, which is just, right. 2 stories, one a tool shed with completely primitive tools.
Right.
Like a scythe.
Yeah.
And then like a very primitive kind of like crank generator, like going around magnets.
Uh-huh.
So this guy was like, he told people, I know the secret of how the pyramids were built.
Right.
It's a lot of just about leverage and understanding magnetism. And he wrote about it, and but he never really gave away his secret. And nobody really saw this guy work for the most part.
And he built this giant, I don't want to say giant, but he built this big monument, right?
Massive structure.
All by himself.
All by himself, yeah. Completely by himself. And even when it came time to move it, which was from Florida City to Homestead. It was just an adjacent town.
I didn't know that he moved it.
He moved the entire thing in 1933, and he completely reconstructed it again. And even when the guy came with the truck, he was like, "All right, go over there, and the truck will be loaded in a few." Yeah, he made the guy go away, and then he had the truck loaded up. And everybody was like, we do not understand how this man ever moved these stones. Like, cranes are almost tipping over, trying to get the same size slabs of the oolite limestone out. And it's a mystery to this day. And he kind of teases some stuff about it. And he says it's really just about leverage and magnetism. And he was saying, like, magnetism is not really properly understood. Humanity is only really understanding one half of the conversation about electricity. And we've built all of our tools to only understand that one side.
Yeah, it's really a disproportionately powerful force.
Yeah.
If you think about all of the gravity of the entire Earth is pulling down on everything, right?
Yeah.
But you can have a refrigerator magnet.
Right.
And you can pick up, against the pull of the Earth's gravity, you can pick up a paperclip or whatever.
Yeah.
Just with the tiniest little refrigerator magnet. It's super, and it is entwined with electricity. You make magnets with electricity. You can make electricity with magnets.
Exactly. So what he was saying, what a lot of people think is that he had this advanced understanding that maybe also the builders of the pyramids had, which was about harnessing anti-gravity. And some people think it's like through specific parts of the earth where there's more of that.
Ley lines type of stuff.
Yeah, ability. And he is born in Latvia, in the old Russian Empire. And he doesn't have wealthy parents. I think he had a 4th grade education. And he came from a family of stonemasons, though, right? And when he was 26, he was like a schoolish person on his own. He tried to read as much as he could and figure out everything. When he was 26, he was engaged to a 16-year-old girl that he called his Sweet 16. And Jesus Christ.
Times are different.
Was that a pair of feet?
Yeah, it was, ooh, squeaky.
the butthole edition.
Footloose 2, Butthole Boogaloo.
The new batch.
New snatch.
He gets jilted, right? She refuses to marry him. She breaks off the engagement.
She not swallow?
Apparently not. Apparently not. She was not buying it. He emigrated to the United States, and he met some, various people in his travels, and he was tell them throughout the years, I'm going to build this place for my Sweet 16. He always talked about his Sweet 16, this girl. And he's, documented being in various parts of the country. He was logging in Oregon, and he was, I think he came first to New York City, and he was always just talking about, I'm going to find the right place to build this kind of monument to my lost love. And then he contracted tuberculosis, and he started seeking the warmer climate of Florida. And then he moved there, and he started work on Coral Castle. And he found this piece of land. He purchased it, and he started harvesting this limestone, compacted, fossilized coral from beneath it. And even just the cutting of it, to this day, nobody really understands how he could cut it so precise. Because the entire walled enclosure of Coral Castle, there's nothing keeping the stones together besides their own weight.
Right.
And they are cut and no light comes through.
Right.
They're immaculately perfect.
Right. And you find this in Egypt, in Peru, all of the ancient megalithic structures all have this in common, right? We still don't get exactly how they made such precise cuts and how they held together with no mortar or cement.
No mortar.
You can't fit a razor blade through the ruins of Machu Picchu. You can't fit a razor blade through the bricks in the pyramids.
Right.
You just can't. One thing, I did find this out recently. Stonehenge, they rebuilt Stonehenge in the fucking 60s or something.
Right.
Cranes. There's we're gonna put them back up like this. We think this is how it was.
Right. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well,
I thought that's just how it was.
Hurricane Andrew took a toll, and also, as much as time could.
On Coral Castle?
Yeah. Most of it really survived.
Why did he move it?
He was robbed. People attacked him because they were like, this guy's so smart, he must be a miserly millionaire. And then he went to the adjacent homestead. And you will go right by this fucking place on US 1 on the way to the Keys. You will go right by this motherfucker. If you're ever going down there, any of our Eastern people, it's right there. And so much so that he was given a big portion of money to use the land to build US 1 by the government.
Oh, like eminent domain type of stuff?
Yeah. It didn't interfere with the castle, but he still had land around there that they were able to build the highway on. And so he's building this place, and his real explanation is like, I'm actually doing this to get so famous from this construct
She'll have no choice.
She'll be like, oh, this guy did this in tribute to me. So within the walls, which the walls are massive tons, the amount of stone weighs over 3 million pounds, right? Tons and tons and tons. And nobody knows how this was done.
Yeah, no machinery.
No, I mean, very, very, very primitive tools.
It's my understanding he did a lot of this at night.
A lot of it at night. And if you showed up, he would kind of, just be a little like, well, it's easy when you know how. And, it's all about leverage and magnetism. And basically, I'm not going to, fucking lay it out for you, but I know how they built the pyramids. But the thing is about this, too, is that this guy is using coral stone, which is porous. Mm-hmm. So the most impressive to me part of it is he had like a 9-ton slab of coral on a perfect axis, housed in other coral stones, and it swiveled on a perfect axis.
Like it rotated.
It rotated with the push of one hand from a child.
Right.
After Hurricane Andrew, a crane and a dozen men could not fix it the way he had it.
Huh.
No, it's completely immobile now. But when he was alive, you would see old ladies and little tiny children pushing it with one hand, and it would still kind of keep slowly swiveling after they had done it. Like it was like a total rotating door that you see in any regular building. But it was an insanely heavy piece of stone that is actually bigger than any single stone in the pyramids. Any of these stones, that even the wall stones, are bigger than any of the stones in the pyramids.
That's interesting.
This guy was doing gigantic fucking work.
Bigger, yet not necessarily as heavy.
No, I think
because I think the pyramids are because of the porosity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
but because the pyramids are limestone as well.
Right. So that's a big part of it too. That people are saying, like, is it about the limestone? Is it about like he was saying, like when you burn like wood, for instance, he's like the magnetism never goes away. It's still there. He's like, there's things that you can't burn because they're so magnetic, like iron, for instance. He had like all this thing where he's like, what you're not really attaching to is the metal with a magnet. You're attaching to the magnetism within the metal that is constantly moving.
I see.
So basically it was like, was it the magnetism of the earth itself underneath it? Was it the magnetism of the limestone? But something was going on where he was really everybody was like, this guy is doing this with 3 logs, like a teepee type structure where he would like lift them up. Like there's some pictures of him doing this shit, but it's completely insane.
Right.
And then as you go through Coral Castle, it's kind of like walking into the mind of an absolute psychopath.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's passed off as kitschy. And you're like, oh, this guy, he built this thing, and it was going to be a world wonder.
And it's for the 16-year-old.
And it's for the 16-year-old.
Well, he's 40 now.
But then, like, it's like, there's other stuff about, like, I had, like, this dumbass classic Florida dude with, like, fucking, like, British Knights on or something, and, like, a huge big gulp. And he was like, yeah, this mathematician came here, and he was talking about this sculpture of all the planets that he's got done in the coral rock. And he's like, yeah, he was talking about how it was, like, genius mathematically. He's like, I couldn't keep up with the guy. I was like, oh, good, I'm glad you're my tour guide.
Yeah.
Like, you fucking asshole. Like, I want to know more about this shit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good.
There's there's, like, a Polaris telescope, like you look through a hole in the coral.
It's astronomically aligned,
and it's aligned with a tower that goes up further in front of you. So, like, you can like view it like one through the other. There's an obelisk. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, an obelisk. Yes.
And there's a completely accurate sundial. There's a fountain. There is a well. There are rocking chairs. There are these beds that are made out of coral that were supposed to symbolize, like, their...
This is where we will consummate our marriage.
Wait,
yes,
in the rock.
The imaginary, not only wife, but children they would have.
The nut house.
Right? And then you're like, that's interesting. And when you go into the corner where the tools...
The nut house.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, he wishes he was in a
Yes.
house.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. Good luck on these coral beds, buddy.
They're porous.
Yeah. Soaks up all the nuts. We're impregnating the brain eggs of this bed as we speak.
That's exactly
You know,
right.
some people think coral is the brain of the earth.
Yes, you can swallow the nut, but the magnetism never goes away. In fact, it only increases tenfold.
Maybe we find out why. Because people are saying that, you know, coral looks like brain underneath the fucking sea, you know? I mean, maybe that's the deal, dude.
All the fish nut.
And all the fish.
Nut.
Constantly.
All our nut.
Involuntarily. You heard it here first. Total lie.
So basically, it sounds like it starts out like a fun monument, but then he starts building the house, and it's clearly too far.
Have you ever seen or heard of?
No, I've
Coral
never.
Restaurant?
Oh, yeah. It's,
This,
I mean,
this
the thing
is
is,
shit like that was like on like In Search of or History's
it was
Mysteries
exactly
back.
on In Search of.
That's where I heard about it.
Yeah, and Nimoy does a great episode on it,
Yeah.
and I think it's like done like a fucking Ancient Aliens episode on the History Channel.
Probably.
You know?
That's what they all do now.
And a lot of people in Homestead. I mean, you're talking about Homestead, 1910s through 30s. You're talking about real, live Florida rednecks. And they thought he was an alien, of course, and probably wanted to kill him. And their first instinct was like, well, let's see if he's got money. So he had this, brutal, violent robbery. And Ed was a 90-pound man.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 foot, maybe 4 foot something.
Gray skin, big eyes, no mouth.
Yeah, constantly nutting.
Vaginas in his
Playing
feet.
with everyone's butthole.
But he was also like, people that were close to him, like neighbors and stuff, were like, oh, he was a fun guy. He was like animated. He was excited to show you around. And he only started charging tours for Coral Castle after like people were kind of like just like traipsing all over it and like, like fucking with his shrubs and stuff. Because he's got like shrubbery. Like it's like a nice outdoor Florida time, And it's like, go over here and look at this and look at this and look at this. And
Where does he get the money or the time to do this?
I mean, he did have, some career in all of his time moving around the States before this. And it seems like he lived on very, very little because when you go into the tower above the tool shed, that's, again, the only enclosed part of Coral Castle. So that's the part where he actually lived, which is one room. And on the ceiling descends 2 ropes. And on those 2 ropes, there's a plank of wood.
And that's what he slept on?
And that's what he slept on.
What?
Yeah. I mean, you go
Slept on a swing?
on a swing, on like a.
It's not even a hammock.
No, it's
No,
not
no,
a
no,
hammock.
it's a
It's
swing.
He
It's a
should have got
swing.
a hammock.
He's
Yeah.
a swinger.
He's a swinger.
Florida,
Yeah.
full of fucking swingers, stoners.
Now I want to tell you, Aaron.
What do you want to tell me?
Tell him.
I want to tell you that this is
He slept on.
1933. He moves the castle.
He moves it.
The entire thing.
That's crazy.
It is. What's crazier, Aaron, is that he's doing this at the very beginning of the Florida Keys, on the southernmost tip of Florida. At the end of the Florida Keys, in Key West, is Dr. Carl Tanzler.
That's right.
At the exact same
That's
time,
exactly right.
Dr. Carl Tanzler,
Trying to get his young jilted.
he's an architect of his own.
Building a...
The precursor to the foot pussy.
If you guys haven't listened to the Dr. Carl Tanzler episode, please listen to it, and then you'll understand why this is so insane. There are 2 men in Florida doing just down the road from each other 2 of the most insane things humanity has ever seen.
For the sake of young
Women that have no interest in them.
Yes. It sounds like they had nut in the brain.
So Dr. Carl Tanzler...
That's why they sell the feet in 2s.
For a friend.
It's like Twix.
Right. But again, 1930s Florida...
1930s Florida.
What
good
a
phrase.
nightmare. I mean,
Just
1930s
I'm a
Florida.
movie executive,
Yeah.
and you walk in and you say, "Here's my pitch." 1930s Florida.
Green light.
Go.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Yeah. That's,
Blank check.
That's that.
Yeah. 1930s Florida.
And 2 of them are right down the road from each other.
I can't be that crazy. You see that castle?
Yeah,
I'm just fucking this body.
All
Yeah.
I'm doing is making a fuck mannequin.
Now, Dr. Carl Tanzler, then don't forget, retired back to like Central Florida. So he passed by Ed
He drove by Coral Castle.
on the way.
Fucking weirdo.
Yeah, heard this guy's a real creep.
Isn't that right, my son? We get to drive in the carpool lane.
Dr. Carl Tanzler. He took a woman's body that he was in love with and then paper mache'd it out so he could keep banging it and loving it
And
against the wishes of the family. If you guys haven't heard the
That's exactly
episode,
right.
but you should listen to it. So you have a guy from Latvia up top building a structure. It can't be built by anyone else to this day. And then down at the very end of the Florida Keys in Key West, you have Dr. Carl Tanzler, who is fucking a dead woman for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you might be like, we got to do something about these immigrants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, the best person to build the wall is Ed.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, wow, that's a good point, John.
you'd be like, oh, man, who can do it better than this guy, right? You'd be like, fucking the wall. We got to fucking do something about these boats and planes.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why we all of a sudden more Central Americans started coming in is we started limiting the number of Europeans who could come in.
Yeah, with good
quotas,
reason.
Yeah, clearly.
But, Jesus Christ, can you imagine in this one tiny sphere, in the same couple of active years,
Yeah.
Tanzler abducted the body in, I think, 31. And it's, again, just down the road.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing about the United States at the time is that it was
Huge.
still is.
Yeah.
Right?
No communication, though, right?
And it was still the Wild West, man.
Yeah, pioneer country.
Every part of the country.
Yeah.
People don't understand the incomprehensible size of Siberia is Russia's something special, China's something special. But the United States, Alaska I think is bigger than Texas and California combined.
Yeah.
And then it is a gigantic landmass.
Yeah.
And it even more so back then when there were less people, you could just go disappear.
Yeah.
And no one was gonna bother you.
Yeah. And it's weird, the craziest thing about America and having immigrant parents too is I remember the first time my dad explained to me that New York State was bigger than Ireland.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you talking about the country you come from?
Yeah.
Is bigger than the one state out of 50 we're in, which
Yeah.
is not the biggest.
Yeah.
I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah, Florida's pretty big itself too.
Florida's fucking massive. Yeah. It's totally insane. And
it's
always been,
It was the
Florida,
30s.
just for the heat has always been this thing where it's it attracts, I guess California too also attracts.
it attracted Ponce de Leon who thought it was a fun
Right.
fountain of youth here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you might find some coral.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that goes on here that you can find out in the tour, which is really, it's just one insane thing after another. Where
And
you're
you've taken this tour.
Yeah,
twice.
you got a big gulp.
I took a
British
girl.
night.
I took a girl on a first date to Coral Castle, and it was a 3-hour drive away. She was like, "I want to do an adventure," like they all say on Tinder.
all right, yeah,
do you really?
Now,
You gotta go.
now, John, I'm gonna hold on here. That's a high risk, high reward date maneuver.
Yes,
Now,
it was all reward for me.
Hey.
yeah.
Did you swing?
That's what I thought.
No, but I'm just saying. Yeah, no, I mean,
Did you make a zombie?
I didn't. Well,
Save for the Patreon.
sure. Yeah, but
Patreon off that date.
I mean, even if it didn't go right, I still got to go to Coral Castle. You know what I mean? I still found out. I read about it on the internet. I was like, oh, this place sounds quirky.
And if
then-
it goes bad, there's a fresh grave that Carl Tanzler left open for you.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing is he writes these little pamphlets at when you go through the gift shop, right? So now you've seen all these insane things, all of which I haven't even told you yet.
What?
The things in the castle in the open air portion. Oh, God. There's more where it's there's rocking chairs and these little thrones and I said the beds that
Is
were
there a
supposed to be for
coral
them.
shitter?
I don't think there was a coral shitter, but there was a fucking punishment chamber.
Oh, God.
For if the imaginary wife or kids were bad.
Oh my god.
What was in the chamber?
Well,
he
in
was
my
thorough.
dreams, you. I saw into the future past this girl I was trying to hook up with, and I was like, man, I hope one day Matt's just like locked up.
hope he fucked up.
I hope he fucking learns his lesson, man, because you can't get away with that shit.
Night.
Yeah. Game over.
This is a smooth door.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Even a child could close it, but no one can open it.
But that's the thing. The fucking the well. When you go down to the well, there was also like a fucking like couple 100-pound little coral wheel that he would wheel in front of the stairs down to the well, so children couldn't fall into it as they like. There was all these little details, and in pictures, it doesn't really do it justice because you're looking at raw, unpainted coral stone. So when you look at pictures, all you see is like a mass of gray.
Right.
Like you have to be there in person to really get to look at every single thing. I mean, hopefully somebody on the internet has done like an exhaustive blow by blow, picture thing of Coral Castle. But the tool shed is really weird under his terrifying sleep chamber. And in the sleep chamber, they have a cardboard cutout of him to show you how small he is. Just to be like, yo, this is like really insane.
Man.
And also, look, I mean, fucking Dracula.
Yes.
He's sleeping on this descended board, if he sleeps at all.
Right.
He's
Just kind of like a weird I Am Legend-y kind of...
Yeah,
existence.
It's mad primitive, and it's still there. I mean, the board and the rope is still there that he slept on, and it's
punishment chamber.
Yeah, he had like a little.
Well, and this is just in case they
Yeah,
fuck up.
if they're bad.
And then
but that's down the road when they come back to me.
Yeah,
we
when
have
they figure it all
kids and
out.
all that out.
I mean, it might have been as the years went by, he was mad that she wasn't hearing about it and coming over.
Yeah.
He was like, when she gets here, man, she's fucking in for it. He's like,
She's been bad.
but alongside that is, the fucking shit about the planets that people still don't understand, the shit about magnetism that they still don't understand. But then he writes all these little pamphlets that are only available through the Coral Castle gift shop.
Of course.
Like, they're not, like, fucking being sold anywhere else. And he does this interesting thing in those where he goes, these are really just my opinion.
Disclaimer.
I've left the adjoining page blank on every page of the book so that you can write your own ideas as you read. And so that led to people thinking that the secrets of the magnetism are actually contained in the books, and you can like decode it as you read them.
Yeah, you just take a pencil and you scratch over it. The
Oh, I
letters
think you just
appear.
have to piss on
Oh,
it.
you just got to piss on it.
That's probably
right.
exactly right, Aaron. That's very good.
Hold it up to the light under the moon of Polaris, through the
Yeah.
hole in the coral stone, on the summer solstice.
Yeah.
What does it say?
It's like
Drink up.
it turns out there's magnets in your piss in my mouth. That's crazy, man.
That's crazy. No danger of any sort of nut zombification or nothing because it's sterile. You see?
Yeah, it's a free will
Why,
kind of.
why put centrum in your piss when your piss is already centrum? Isn't that right, John?
Yeah, you see the piss is sentient?
Whoa. Piss has become self-aware.
So you're saying that fucking coral is the brain and the sperm?
Well, it's a good thing you left the pages blank because we're gonna have to do some arithmetic to figure that one out.
Yeah. We're gonna have to piss a nut all over it. It's but there's a family kind of political book too, where he's like, "This is what I think about the way the family unit should work."
He's got a manifesto.
Yeah.
And so he does stuff about like politics and land ownership, and like he's got all this stuff about like, oh yeah, girls after 16, like they're spoiled, like.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, that's so
There's like all this like.
let me just get that out.
Please.
Listen, I'm a pervert, right?
Absolutely.
I'm no stranger. I'm an honest pervert, more or
Oh, very
less.
much so.
I'm debauched.
Oh, yes, very much.
But what 16-year-old is so fucking interesting that you'll build anything for them? I wouldn't build a model train set for a 16-year-old.
Right.
There is nothing about you that is gonna get me going.
Okay, but can I retort?
She was Latvian.
Of course.
What I think is different about that time is that people were interesting-er at a younger age because they were kind of like just like on the farm longer and seeing more shit around the house, and you know, like there wasn't all this big separation of parents and kids, and shit got realer faster at a younger.
Yeah,
you were so poor.
They had to grow up
I think
quick.
there's
You had to
something
grow
to
up
that.
quick, right?
I think there's something to that. I think there's other things there to people not living as long or
Sure.
Yeah, but
Still, absolutely, yes.
still 16.
No, yeah, everybody is barely a human by
Yeah.
today's standards.
Yeah.
But back then, who knows? I don't know. And also, you know, girls are always more mature than guys.
Today's 16-year-old girls are nothing to write home about, but these
Back
fucking
then-
19, 20, 16-year-olds, Jesus fucking Christ, you gotta get a taste of these.
I mean,
their foot pussies were out of this world.
I'm not
Make
saying-
you build the fucking pyramids
not-
with these 16-year-old foot
I'm not
pussies back in
saying-
1926.
I'm not saying they were so great or so hot, but I think they might have been a bit more mature.
Or at least relatively mature, because
Right, yeah,
people
yeah,
weren't
yeah.
as, and this is so pompous of me to say.
As is your style.
Thank you. People weren't that as complex back then.
No.
The world, there wasn't as much shit going on.
Yeah.
You know, there was only so much to learn.
Yeah, they even had bears in the army.
They had bears in the army.
Yeah,
They didn't
yeah.
have antibiotics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that guy wasn't even found out for years.
Yeah, they didn't even know.
Yeah, they just thought he was some Polak.
They kept promoting him.
Man, Wojtek's hairy. But man, boy, does he love to eat cigarettes. And he can move those boxes
Good
pretty quick.
soldier.
Good on you. You should all be more like Wojtek.
Man, I wish I spoke Polish.
Not me. Can't wait till they invent light bulbs.
But yeah, so there's like, you know, like these like, you know, one thing where you turn around, there's this sculpture of the planets that this mathematician that tore us through is saying like, yo, this is amazing. Like,
Wait, a sculpture of the
advanced
planets?
understanding. Yeah, it's like all stars and planets, like in this sculpture that you see, it's small scale that you can walk up to.
Right.
And this mathematician was like, oh, this is like fucking, he shouldn't have known this at this era and stuff, and telescope, the accurate sundial. And on, you know, his kind of balanced, you could say like a balanced wheel of coral that you could lay down on and you could reach the ground, you know, like those things they have on the playground where you spin them around when kids are on it. You know what I'm talking about? The wood with the metal bars.
Yeah.
He had that
A merry-go-round.
of a giant slab of coral rock. And they said there's hospital records of him having leukemia, and he got it, and he just laid on that stone and swiveled the stone to different positions as the day waned, being in the sun. And when he died in 1951, there was no trace of leukemia in his body. So he said he was able to cure himself of leukemia, basically. Or that was said about him. He had no leukemia at the time of his death. He put up a little sign. He had these little signs around that were very cute, and they still are to this day, where it's like, tour, 10 cents, you know, ring bell twice. And then he would come out and he would show you in, and he would take you around, and, you know, he just wouldn't tell you how he did it. He would just be like, yeah, it's easy.
I also have the cure for leukemia,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to give it up.
It's kind of, I wouldn't say, but it involves a wheel.
It involves 16-year-olds.
Yeah. And, yeah, maybe spend some time in my punishment chamber. I might leak a couple of things.
Oops, I'm leaking now.
Punch the leukemia right out of him.
But yeah, so he has these like mad, you know, antiquated fucking ideas about the family unit and how a boy at 16 is totally fucking raw and spoiled and terrible. But a girl at 16, you know, like all this shit that's so dumb and just, I mean, infantile. And
Sure, I mean, 16-year-old boys are dumb.
yes,
And
yes,
they
they
are
should
hor-
all.
They are the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's not wrong.
That is not wrong.
No, but I mean, it's not as if like a 20-year-old girl is like fucking ruined forever.
Absolutely not.
You know?
A 28-year-old year-old woman is great.
Absolutely.
29 even.
Wow, yeah.
All the way up to 100. But anything over that,
Right out.
get fucked, lady.
Eat these cigarettes.
Yeah, no way I'm wasting my zombie nut on you.
Yeah.
You're gone by my clock. Spring chicken, anything before that?
Yeah. Well, that's very conservative of you. But yeah, he's you know, it's just hilarious to me. He's got these very, you know, conservative viewpoints.
Of course.
But he has this understanding of how to move 3 million pounds of porous stone.
But that's an old world thing too,
Yes,
right?
yeah. So I guess was any part of his thinking modern at all?
Right.
Everything he knew were old things that have been forgotten.
But also, the old worldiest part of it is I'm not sharing.
Well, that's also very modern.
That's modern. That's actually pretty modern.
Do you think?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
We got rid of the estate tax.
It's just like, yeah, I know how to do it. I'm not going to tell you.
That's the most new world thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, is I'm not gonna pay up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know any of the specifics about his social theories, or you know the?
It was just very conservative. It was
Everybody.
It wasn't anything that impressive. It was pretty like a low rent Republican type theory on a political and social dynamic. But then that's just like one pamphlet, and like part of it is family, and part of it is like or domestic, and then part of it is political, and talking about property rights and stuff like that, and like there's some dumb shit in there where it's like the only person you should vote for is a property owner, and even more dependent the more property he owns, because otherwise he's like deficient as a human because he can't gain.
There are a lot of people still believe that only property owners can vote because.
Yeah, but also he's like, hey, listen, if you can't buy property, you're a useless piece of shit. Like it's so dumb. Because you went to fucking the hospital and you were like mad malnutritioned, and then you got a stroke in the hospital, and then you went home and died of kidney failure, like an asshole. You couldn't feed yourself.
You slept on a swing.
Yeah. I mean, like. Come on, dude. You know, like, there's of course, there's like amazing things he did that are still incredible to this day.
Right.
But like his other side is just like, man, you are so fucked up.
You're out of your league.
Yeah.
You stick to stonemasonry.
Yeah.
But you know,
but the thing too is that like he does the logging in Oregon, and he comes from the family of stonemasons that would do the huge tombstones and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's
that's the thing with the Masons is that they're in a cult to a degree in a cult organization, right?
Yeah.
Never mind the conspiracy theory bullshit.
Sure, yeah. But it is like whatever.
It is a time-honored ancient society that back then they did pass down geometry. And engineering and physics before those were even things that had names.
Yeah.
It was a sacred science that the Masons were passing down in an apprenticeship model over the ages before we ever...
It was just best practices.
Yes, but like literally chiseled and honed out of eons of experience.
Yeah.
And now it's a thing that you get a ring for. And you put a sticker on your whatever, but... It very much was.
Did I tell you about the Freemason at 7-Eleven?
Is that a Simpsons thing?
Yeah, the Freemason at 7-Eleven.
No. There's this Freemason dude at my local 7-Eleven when I was in Florida, and he had like the biggest fucking Freemason symbol on his necklace, and he was just the guy at 7-Eleven. And our buddy Joe, friend of the show, had like this tattoo that was like an eye here, and he was like. It's like, oh, what's that tattoo about? And Joe was like, it's fucking this thing from whatever. And the guy goes, yeah, kind of like the all-seeing eye, huh? And we're like,
it's on the dollar bill, right?
And then he goes, to be one, ask one, which is the thing where it's like, the Freemasons are like just desperate because obviously they have 7-Eleven guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I going to join for? So I can work at 7-Eleven? Like, what are you talking about? Like, your secret society is failing like crazy. Like, the conspiracy is fucked up.
I think for the longest time, like every president was a Freemason up until like
and now it's like
the past two.
Yeah, now they're all just Harvard grads.
Yeah,
they're not It's the guy at 7-Eleven. So it's got two fucking triangle eye bumper stickers. It's like somebody going like, I'm a Freemason, you know, like in the fucking 70s. I told you somebody came to my dad's apartment, and he was like, comes like a fucking guy in a suit with a briefcase. He knocks on my dad's door, his apartment, and he's like, I'm a Freemason.
Oh,
and he goes,
you want to live here? Or what are you doing?
Somebody
you want to build another apartment?
Somebody you know is a Freemason, and they want you to join. And my dad's like, well, who? And he goes, well, we can't tell you. We're a secret society. And my dad's like, all right, well, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
He's like, I know types of assholes.
Yeah.
They can ask me.
You know, like, it's like, what? And like, but I mean, all of that secrecy is even gone now, where it's like, if you're a Freemason, you're throwing it on your bumper sticker. Like, the secrecy is totally gone. Like, they're like fighting for like any kind of.
The Elks Lodge has got the Freemasons beat.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Or that's what they want you to think.
Yeah. The Moose and the Elk have them on the run. You know?
There's a Moose Lodge here in Burbank. They have wrestling shows once a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey.
Yeah. Eric Barnes?
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, so, you know, the masonry thing, I can see how it would become culty, where it's like, I mean, you're doing amazing things with heavy stone. If you know how to do it, that's going to be a world in itself, like any industry, right? You know, you get kind of culty, you know, if you're like any kind of skill or trade.
Yeah, I don't even want to say culty, but yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, it's like, whatever.
It's a trade. It's a trade. It's a secret.
Yeah.
Cult has a bad connotation.
Yeah.
You know?
I only hesitate because of the connotation of the word cult, but it is.
But also, it did get culty with Freemasonry, which came from masonry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're one and the same.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There is a cultiness to Freemasonry. I think we would agree.
Yes. I
They're just not killing themselves based on stars.
Yeah, they're not. You know, it's not.
Well, they're not zombies.
Oh.
They're not, or they're nut.
They're nut zombies.
Nut zombies.
Oh, they're nut zombies. Yeah. And well, we're all nut zombies, aren't we?
In a certain way.
Our moms ate eggs, and our dads came in their mouths.
That's how I was born.
Yeah. You know, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking like the brain is the egg. I was like, the egg. No, your egg is a brain in that drug commercial. And I was like, that drug commercial. I was like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. You're like, oh, perfect, like delicious and scrambled and cooked.
It's perfect for the morning.
Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Come on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Chop it up.
But yeah, Ed Leedskalnin is he's a very flawed psycho, but he created an absolute wonder of the world that doesn't get its due to this day. I mean, it should be examined like crazy, and instead it's passed off mainly because of the weird romance angle in
right.
it.
It's in the same. It's filed into the same folder as the Winchester House. It's a novelty.
Yes, except that the Winchester House is perfectly explainable.
Of course. What I'm saying is that in the public opinion, or
yeah.
it's just
it's eccentric.
It's a curiosity.
It's an eccentric monument, right?
Right,
It's an eccentric place. But it is so fascinating how long all of that endured. Decades. I mean, decades have gone by, and a lot of that shit is still completely as it was when he was alive.
Did you do any like follow-up stuff to see if there had been any theories as to how
YouTube is littered with like
bullshit?
Yeah, here's how it works.
He moved it because the Earth is flat, dude.
And
did they tell you how white supremacists built it?
No. There's a lot of stuff about like people just being like, all right, it's actually not that crazy, but I mean, a lot of people are still just like, we don't know how. I mean, you see people attempting it in the In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. They're doing it with a crane.
Right.
They can't make the cuts the same to cut it out of the ground to begin with. And he's doing that. And don't forget, he's cutting underneath. He's cutting underneath his own feet. You know what I mean? He's got to cut down to make the slab and then cut it underneath. He's doing all of that and then raising it up with 3 logs. Tons of stone. Yeah. Again and again and again. And it seemed like in kind of not much time.
Right.
You know? But it was interesting. I mean, seeing like there was some people that like just knew him as a guy.
Right.
Where it's like, your neighbor's long enough and you're like, well, that's Ed. Yeah. And he's got his crazy little castle
He's got his swing bed.
Nice guy. But,
but at the end of the day, you're all just people in that rural Florida that are going to the store getting milk.
Yeah.
And they were like, they all talk in that In Search Of from back in the day. And they're like, yeah, he was really nice and really kind. And he would always show us around. But like when he first started it, it was like every local was coming and looking. And then it was like, obviously that thing of, I mean, imagine, the fucking DeLorean shows up in the Wild West and you're like, what we got to do is beat the shit out of and rob Doc Brown.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Right.
And that's what made him move the whole thing. But moving the whole thing is also this test against the theory that it's the specific location.
Right. It's not a ley line thing.
It's not, right? Because, I mean, even though it's a town adjacent.
Ley lines hate this guy.
They do. It's
just one simple.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
The whole thing is still not really explained to this day. He left behind like some writings and stuff that people were still kind of like mystified over. Like I said, a lot of the astronomy stuff that's in the castle is still being puzzled over.
This is just because it's in Latvian and no one speaks that anymore?
No. He was speaking English the whole time. It was, he had like a couple of $1,000s, and then the property went to some like distant relative in Michigan.
Right. So who's the caretaker of the estate now, and how does that?
It kind of became like a corporation because that guy sold it to somebody else who sold it then to a corporation. Like they realized like it's
trust or something.
Yeah. Now it's like Coral Castle Incorporated. It used to be just called Rockgate. He called it Rockgate.
Whoa, Stargate.
And yeah, and then they were like Coral Castle. But it's on the National Register of Historic Sites.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely incredible. It's really something you have to go and see.
We should go. I've seen the In Search Of and stuff, but I don't have any idea of the scale. Like it's hard for me to I don't know how big it or any of the stones are.
It's tons of weight. It's tons and tons and tons of weight. Like I said, that gate that is perfectly accessed through drilling a hole through like an 8-9 foot slab of coral. And it swivels on a perfect fucking axis. And it's a porous stone. One side should easily
be off balance.
Yeah. And you've got little kids pushing it with one fucking hand. Yeah. And then after the hurricane, when it gets fucked up, a crane and a dozen men cannot fix it to be mobile at all.
Right.
That is insane.
Soaked up all the water.
Yeah.
Got heavier.
Yeah. Did is there ever any point where his ex-love had any comment on it?
I don't think there's any recorded response ever. News traveled slower back then.
Yeah, but she's probably like 30. She's got like 3 kids, and she's like,
"There's been a goddamn world war since."
She's like, "Oh, he built a built a castle?
Yeah,
I got kids over
here. There's been a couple of world wars.
I've survived 2 world wars.
I forgot his name.
Yeah, she's like,
is that Carl?
She's like, I've been dead for years.
Yeah, I'm busy being this other doctor's corpse bride.
I don't have time.
Just on the road.
It's used in a bunch of like alien background scenes from back in the day. Like people would be like, "Oh, this is some other planet's like habitat." They would use it for shit like that.
What? Like Star Trek shit?
Yeah, that type of shit, like sci-fi stuff, because it looks,
weird.
insane.
It's weird. It's abnormal.
It was used in a song written about the whole Coral Castle thing by Billy Idol called Sweet 16.
That's right.
And they filmed a video there.
Whoa.
And so it's like, that's the kind of shit that was left there when I first went there. It was like pictures of Billy Idol. I was like, you guys are fucking this up so bad. Like, I wanted to tell them, I was like, this guy with the fucking high tops and the big gulp doesn't know about the planets. I was like, you got fucking faded pictures of Billy Idol in here.
100 years from now, people are going to think Billy Idol had a white wedding in this Coral Castle.
I was like, you guys, this is not cute. I was like, this whole thing is not cute. It's a wonder of the world, and you need to fucking respect it.
Yeah, you're burdened by that foresight.
Hi, it's Matt. Brief edit here.
It's really, really
Later,
amazing. It's
right
one
before he
of,
died,
I mean,
Chopper
just several
also said
places
that when he
from
killed
living
the
in
Turk,
Florida that I
it
found
was
out about. Like, I
not
mean,
self-defense,
I could do
and he was
a
actually
lot of shit
surprised
about just
that
Florida
the jury
locations
let
for
him
this
off.
show that
Fun
are
fact.
extremely, overwhelmingly insane.
Yeah.
There really is a thing about only in Florida, and it's not just getting caught in the air conditioning vent, sneaking into the liquor store
Right.
on meth.
Right.
It's really like stuff where like there is something about Florida that attracts the most insane, extreme, strange people.
Well, yeah, just like California, it's same.
Totally.
It's a
Right,
climate
totally.
that you can always live in and never have to worry that it's going to be kill you, basically.
Right, and is it part of that the climate gives you the freedom to be a psycho?
Yeah,
Part of it,
because you don't have to fucking shovel the driveway.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
That's
you don't,
part of it. Yeah. I think it's hey, want California but don't want to go that far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come to Florida.
Yeah, it was poor man's California. That's exactly what I thought it was growing up. I would only see,
No
like I
shit.
said, Nickelodeon shit where it's Orlando and it's fun and it's Disney, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And then I moved to Florida and I was like, this is a wasteland of
Right, and
insanity.
there's a Disneyland here, a Disneyland World there. There's Universal Studios there, here.
Exactly,
There's
exactly.
Nickelodeon Studios there, here.
To me, Florida was California. It was like when I was growing up watching Nickelodeon in New York, I was like, oh, it's all palm trees and good times and beaches. And then I go there and it's like,
Strip clubs and glory holes.
it's fucking Confederate flags. I never saw a
Yeah.
Confederate
It's the
flag
South.
before in my life. Yeah. It's somehow everything. It's Miami, which is its own culture to begin with.
Yeah.
And then the Keys, and then like, Key West is like a gay destination. And then you have the whole central thing with the swamp, and the more in the middle you are, the more rednecky it is and weird. And then there's like the New Yorkers on the East Coast and all the Midwest people on the West Coast, and it's just this weird, insane, strange place that somehow it should be less rednecky, shouldn't it? Because it's got so many transplants, but it's somehow more rednecky than like any other redneck
Well,
state.
it selects for.
Yeah.
There's a selective pressure
Yeah,
that.
it's cooking.
Yeah, something's
it's-
going on there, man.
It's south of the South.
Yeah.
It is south of the South, and it looks like a dick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe it's the
Wow.
magnetism. Maybe it's like a fucking weirdo magnet.
Maybe the keys are the sperm
Maybe the keys are the key.
bumps.
To
The stones.
the stones. What? I don't know.
Well, I mean, a place like that in California, quack doctors, this is a thing that we'll touch on in a couple weeks.
Quack docs.
They would always say, go to these places in Florida, California, to fix your health.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So the people most likely to believe that are also, most likely to be kind of weird.
Right.
Well,
Same
when-
thing
when
for
you-
Arizona too.
Yeah, when you've got springs and all that shit, there's like a part of you that instinctively believes this is healing.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is like.
And it's not necessarily
Well, and the placebo
wrong.
effect works.
Right. And
So
it's
if you
true
believe it-
enough.
Yeah.
It's true enough. It doesn't have to.
Yes.
I don't need to know how or why, but I know that it does work.
Right. Yeah. It's truth-esque.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
You know?
no one's like, go to Vermont. You'll always fix
Right.
all of your health
Hey, you
problems
feeling like
in
shit?
Vermont.
Go to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think John. This is apropos of nothing. But John Muir, he would go lay on glaciers.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that being the other end of the
right,
purity,
that's-
right?
Yeah, right. That's taking a cold plunge or an ice bath, or that.
Well, it's the
and
hot-
both
hot springs,
both
right.
things are good for you. Extreme hot.
They're
and extreme,
poles.
Yes.
It's magnets.
Yeah,
It's hot and cold.
And I thought you were saying Poles like Polish people.
Yeah.
They're bears.
Everybody that thinks this is Polish.
They're Poles.
Yeah. Polish guys hate this guy. But yeah, that's I always talk about Ed. I always talk about Coral
Yeah.
Castle.
That was one of the first things we talked about when you were coming up, for the plan for the show, and
Yeah.
it was really weird. I was just thinking about the other day, why haven't you done it? And I'm glad you did.
I think I did it on Vanessa's podcast, kind of talking about Florida.
Shout out to
Yeah, it's Vanessa Gritton. And
Was it the
no, it was back when she was doing the Take a Walk.
Take a Walk? Yeah.
Podcast, but Vanessa Gritton from the Brouhaha podcast, and I talked about a bunch of different Florida stuff that I'll probably do more stuff on again in the show. But yeah, it's there was just so much I always loved about that story because it's just so unbelievably strange, and still people don't get it. They still are like, so what? Like, and he was just there alone for like all that time, and there was like people that knew him would be like, oh, he was always feeling like he was on the verge of a breakthrough on new electromagnetic discoveries. Like he was really always working on this stuff and thinking about it, and making these primitive generators with magnets and cranks and all that stuff is still there. You can everything you see besides that, which is still very primitive because it's a metal crank with magnets. But everything else you see is like a shovel, a scythe. Like, it's not high tech in any way. It's just so incredible. There's no way this tiny man with these tools can do this shit.
Right.
To this day. It's just unbelievable. It's amazing.
We'll put some photographs on the Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to say goodnight.
Yes, we are.
I love each of you boys.
Hey, and I am
Very
much
much.
of you men.
My name is John Fahey.
I'm Aaron Pita.
Matt Brousseau.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Good night.